G'day and welcome to the video. So, bit of a special one for you. We have spawned in 400. Yes, that's right, 400 supply crates here on Genesis 2. And as you can see via the color-coded vaults, we have separated them out and put them into their respective sort of segments. So I'm here with my friend and fellow content creator, Frisky RedPanda from RedPanda Gaming. And I'll be leaving a link to his channel in the description below for you guys to go and visit, because he will also be showing off the same content here. So make sure to go and visit his channel, give a subscribe and a like to the video. That'll be muchly appreciated. So what we've done, these vaults, we've got the little signs here, structures and saddles. So this is where all the structures, saddles and crafting stations are going to be going into these first line of vaults for each of the different colors. Then we got weapons and armor. So that's the middle vault for every single one of the different colors as well. And lastly, resources. So anything that is generally used for crafting or perhaps is edible, that's what's going to be going into the last vaults. Above them, we've got the large metal signs or the billboards. So it's going to be giving off the actual color itself, as well as the space biome resource that you can gather whilst you're in there. So if you're seeing, as an example, if you're seeing green beacons in the sky, then you know that the space biome is going to be giving you crystal if you were to go out there and harvest it. So as we go through, I'll be having a quick squiz at the billboards just so you guys are aware of what resources are going to be available to you depending on what drops you see. Now, the reason why we've segregated them out, it was a really good idea by Panda to color code them, so that way you guys are going to be able to see exactly what loot you can get from the drops themselves, and if there's anything particular that you're after, then you know what biome you need to wait for and the chances of actually getting that item once you obtain the drops. I do recommend probably getting a Maywing or using your Federation suit to fly around the map to do some farming, as some of these do tend to be quite varied and sort of segregated in what they do offer, and you guys will find that out as we progress through the video. So how this is going to work, we're going to alternate between us as to which color we open up. Frisky is going to start off with the white vaults over here because we've got Fez the Ferox sitting up there. So he's going to be our little mascot for today, overseeing the operations. And then I'm going to move on to the red, and then Frisky onto the orange, me onto the yellow, green, blue, purple, and then lastly the cyan. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Panda, and he's going to take us through what's in each of these three vaults for the white drops.
Alrighty, thank you, Axel. Alright, let's jump straight in, guys. So we're at the white drop. So you get ambergris from the space zone when you see white drops around, and we're going to jump straight in. So we're going to be looking at the this vault here. So you're getting building structures, crafting stations, and saddles predominantly. So as you can see, just some generic adobe, some metal structures. Get the fabricator, chem bench, which is always very nice early game if you can find one of these drops. Some easy pre-crafted saddles, although maybe not the best, but clearly some Maywing saddles are popping up in this drop, so that's going to be very nice, as Maywings are quite an early team that you want to get. What else have we got? Muscraft Packy saddle, BP. Apart from that, we've got a few mole rat saddles and quets. Yeah, look, apart from that, we get a few tech lights and a jump pad. So not the best resources apart from probably the Maywing crafted saddles. What else we got? So over into our weapons and armor. So we have found a bit of a common thing that occurs between all the drops is that each sort of drop has its main sort of armor set. So for white drops, we've found that you get predominantly chitin. So we have our array of chitin armor, and yeah, look, there's not some bad stuff here with some ascendant gauntlets as well as a Journey BP helmet. Apart from that, you get your charger lanterns as well as some pre-crafted assault rifles, which is very, very nice. And coming down to the bottom, you've got your Muscraft pikes and your ramshackle pike BP, as well as a tech railgun. So coming down to the sort of the the top tier end of the weapons is a railgun, so it's nice to see that you can still pick some of them up in the drop. Last but not least is our resources. So we got some typical resources here. A lot of these you can find throughout the map just by harvesting. It's nice to see you can get a little bit of element shards, although the space zone still offers a lot of that. Getting some beer is quite nice. You do get some perishables, and look, we've spent a fair bit of time putting all this together, so some of those perishables have gone. But yeah, it was some absorbent substrate. Some black pearls is quite nice because they are a little bit difficult to get sometimes if you don't know where to find them. Condensed gas, very handy. Apart from that, polymers. Polymer is probably the best resource you're probably going to be picking up out of some of these drops, as it is one of the harder resources to find as well as harvest, unless you fancy finding some mantises. And that about sums up the white drop, guys. And I'll hand you back over to Axel to move on to the red.
Alrighty, cheers Frisky. So, just a brief overview. So the red drops is denoting that the oil biome for the space segment sort of comes into play. So what we're going to be looking at, as Frisky has just denoted before, structures and saddles is what we're going to be looking at next. So plenty of adobe structures, which isn't overly important for Genesis 2, but you're going to get them anyways. Anki saddles, so we've got 4 of them there, all the way up to Mastercraft, which is quite good. Got some Daedon saddles as well, got an Ascendant one there, sitting pretty. Daedon's always handy to have. For people who don't really want to build big, you're getting some Behemoth gates in here as well, so if you place it down and get a gateway in there, then you can demolish it and get a whole bunch of resources back from it, so that's always handy. Next we've got Plesiosaur saddles, which again, you're getting blueprints of the different variations here. So we've got Plesiosaur and Pteranodon. More Pteranodon down here as well. We got plenty of Rex saddles actually. So yeah, red drops seem to be dropping the Rex saddles nicely. So if you can get a decent BP out of that, which we do know you can get BPs thanks to the Plesiosaur and Pteranodon there, as well as a Spino Ascendant saddle, which is pre-crafted, but that can also come in BP form. We're also looking at a few tech structures here. So we've got the tech bridge, we've got some fence supports, we've got some foundations and the hatch frame, we've got the window frames and the trap doors. So that's not bad if you want to just simply stick it down and demolish it outright for some more element if you don't actually have any use for it. But at the same time, it's still handy to have. So now we'll move on over to the weapons and armor segment for the red drops. So here, right off the bat, we can see plenty of the electric prods, which if anyone's actually used these, they can be quite lethal. Good for knocking out players. Some fabricated pistols, some higher end flamethrowers. Weirdly enough, the weapon damage on the Journeyman is actually lower than both the Apprentices, but decent durability, which is nice. The armor that you're most likely going to get from these red drops is Ghillie, so quite good if you're wishing to do some Shadow Mane taming, as it will reduce the aggro range on all creatures around you, including that said Shadow Mane, by 50%. So if you combine that with a Cactus Broth, then you're going to sneak up nicely, feed it the fish baskets that you need. And of course, as every other drop is going to provide, we also do have some BPs in there of those items. And not some bad long necks either. It'd be nice if they were BPs, but nonetheless, still handy to have, especially early game if you can manage to get your hands on a red drop. So now we'll move on over to the resources. So the resources coming out of the red drops is definitely favouring the condensed gas, which I suppose if you are going to be turning into gas balls, it's not a bad thing, considering it's the only way that I'm aware of that you can get condensed gas on the map thus far. Plenty of cementing paste, which is nice, some raw metal, heaps of obsidian and oil, probably kind of fitting considering it's the oil biome that allows you to see the red drops in the first place. We've got some cooked lamb chops. There was a bit more than that, but a lot of it spoiled into the spoiled meat that you see down below. got decent amount of elements. So out of 50 drops, got 20 element. So it's not a bad sort of way to go if you don't have any other means of getting element or element shards. Got a bit of polymer there, so that's always handy. Propellant to be used as ammo for the flamethrower. Silicate, which is just the same as silica pearls. Some more gems, crystal, and other generic resources. Sulfur as well, which the only way I've seen to get sulfur is either via the drops or going to the space biome as well. So, and clay, but you can gather that from rocks. Alright, so that concludes the red drops. So now we'll be going over to Frisky to look over the orange vaults.
Okay guys, so orange drops. What we find over in the space zone is black pearls. Basically they look like big black pearl asteroids, planets that are floating, so it's a nice place to go get some. Otherwise, using the sort of those carnivorous plants to harvest up some black pearls is also a nice tip. So we're going to jump straight into this one, our structures. So I guess as again, we've got our adobe structures, our pre-crafted saddles, and some of our workbenches, which is our common. So look, the 96.1 Ascendant Anki saddle is quite nice, especially if you're going to go harvesting some resources in the space zone or just in general. It's quite nice to have a bit of durability there. We've got a few BPs thrown in. Fish baskets are nice to get, but they're quite easy to make as well, especially if you want to go tame your shadow mate. We're picking up the fabricator again as well, which seems to be a common occurrence across all drops so far. We have some manta saddles that are appearing in our orange drop, as well as some megalo saddles. What else do we have? We've got a lot of metal structures popping up, and look, it's good to, even if you can't use some of these structures, is to hold on to them, because you can come across a grinder later on potentially, and you can grind some of these things down to get some resources back, so it saves a bit of that farming process. We have some nice Pteranodon saddles, some nice Pteranodon BPs, which is quite handy, as well as some more plesiosaur saddles. Coming down a bit further, we've got our Spino saddles again, pre-crafted, but still nice to get. Look, we're into our Tapajara saddles. Nice, but not a very common tame that people get. And our tech items, it seems to be very common. Our tech crop plot, very handy to have and very needed if you're going to be planting some of those R species seeds for those meat plants. Tech trough, awesome item to have if you've got a few dinos, as the spawn time is a lot higher when you've got resources in there. Apart from that, just some generic resources and structures. So let's jump over to our weapons and our armor. So the common item that we find in our orange drops is ghillie again, and look, a lot of pre-crafted, though we can come across some blueprints, which is still nice and handy. We have got a lot better pre-crafted long necks, which is very nice to see. It'd be nice to get some of these in a BP form, but look, pre-crafted or not, it's still handy. As well as a lot of pre-crafted pistols and flamethrowers. That Mastercraft flamethrower is very nice. And yeah, Tech Canteen, it's sort of a new item. I enjoy it, it's very handy. Alrighty, last but not least is our resources. So not a very standout resource, just an array of a lot of stuff. You've got the carnivorous plant seed, which is very nice. That means you can go harvest your own black pearls and meat and everything else from those plants. You've got a bit of element, only 11 element from 50 drops, which is not as much as the previous one that we looked at. But look, just a nice assortment of basic resources that we can get from here, as well as some silicate, which is silica pearls, and some absorbent substrate, bit of crystal. But yeah, look guys, the resources is just your generic resources, nothing that stands out too much, apart from a couple of the small things. A little bit of poly, actually. 121 poly. That's very, very nice, as it's still one of the harder resources to come across on Gen 2. Alrighty, I'm going to move over to Axel on the yellow drop.
Cheers, Frisky. So now let us move on to the yellow drops that we've brought in. So if you see yellow drops throughout the map, then that means there's the obsidian biome in the space segment in the middle of the map that you're going to be able to harvest. So right down the middle of the map there. So starting off, we're going to go through the structures and saddles. So same as the other drops, adobe does seem to be prominent in every single color thus far, but that's okay. That's fine. It doesn't hurt, I guess. Arthropleura saddles, which aren't overly abundant, but you can get them inside the yellow drops. We've got the behemoth gates again. So again, just placing them down and demolishing them if you're not specifically going to use them. No harm in that. Bunk bed, which is nice, but easy to make, but still nice to have. We've got some Kano saddles coming through. So again, BP form, not bad quality on them. We've got a Giga saddle as well, but it seems to be quite rare. So that's the first Giga saddle I've seen come through in a drop. So yellow drops are for the Giga saddles, I guess. We do have glider suit skins, that seems to be relatively prominent. And we make our way down to the Karkanos and Megatherium saddles. So big abundance there. What have we got? 1 to 7, another 6, so 13. So 13 out of 50, essentially, which isn't bad. 1 in 4 drops will probably have one of these kinds of saddles in it. So Megatherium, obviously for Swamp Cave or taking on Broodmother, and Karkanos if you're deciding to use it as a harvesting mount, carrying around your Ankies to harvest a bunch of metal over in Aberration. I suppose you'd be able to do it over here in Genesis 2 as well. Plenty of Raptor saddles, not that Raptor is necessarily a very common tame. A few crafting stations, so smithy, fridge, mortar and pestles, preserving bin, etc. Lots of metal pipework, so they're a bit of a pain to sort of place down and constantly be demolishing. I'd probably just wait until you get a grinder and stick them all in and see what sort of pops out from that. As we work our way down, we go past the stone structures and we've got a tech crop plot as well as an assortment of other tech items. So we've got the tech sleeping pod, which if you can get this and put it down, and then as you're sleeping in it, you'll gain XP even when you're logged off. So, you know, log off, come back, and you'll be max level for whatever ascension level you're at. We've got the tech dino gates and tech doors and whatnot. Again, if you're not using them, then just place them down and demolish them. You'll get back small amounts of resources, element black pearls, and that sort of thing. We've got the tech surveillance console in there as well, which is a new item that was recently brought out by Gen 2. And for those of you who know how to use it, it is exceptionally useful, especially when it comes to spying on your enemies and their bases and whatnot. So not a bad amount of sort of tech structures as a whole. Maybe not overly common, but yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. So now over into our weapons and armor for the yellow drops. As we can see straight off the bat, fur armor seems to be the most prominent kind of armor you're going to get from these drops, which is fine. Somehow there's high-ended on meat packs in here, so excuse me just for a second while I quickly put these over here, because that's a kind of saddle. What else we got? Oh, the glider suit skins again, which were also in the structures and saddles section, but it's fine, they'll also do here. We've got hatchets, which I think is the first time I've seen hatchets throughout the drops, so again, not bad, easy to make, but at least, you know, you get higher quality ones. And my favorite, the tech phase pistol. So for those of you who haven't seen my video yet, I do have a video sort of highlighting this, and Panda and I are going to do some videos on this at a later date, showing off the potential destruction, I guess, this will bring, as well as its healing abilities when it comes to soaking turrets, so stay tuned for that one. And lastly, we've got the tech shoulder cannon. So with the different armor ratings, it's not overly important because the armor rating's just so low, but that's fine. It's a free tech shoulder cannon, like you can't really complain. And a couple of rocket launchers in there, 3 to be exact, which is always nice to have as a backup or a spare. so keeping those handy, keeping them in your mannequin loadout kit would be quite nice. And now we'll move over into our resources vault for the yellow drops. And straight off the bat, we notice that there's quite a few primitive charge batteries. So these yellow drops seem to be sort of maybe aberration based with all the Karkanor saddles that we were looking at. And now these batteries as well as the glider suit skins. So I'm guessing aberration was its main focus. We've got plenty of clay there, plenty of condensed gas balls, plenty of condensed gas. We did have a lot more fish meat in its own right, but it has spoiled. Same with the raw meat, but that's fine. A little bit of element, so 9 out of 50 for the 50 drops isn't exactly a lot, but it is what it is. Decent amount of shards. The obsidian is actually a good amount. I don't mind having the obsidian there to help make hard poly. Speaking of which, 110 out of 50 drops, that's pretty decent. Bit of oil there as well. Silicate, which is just your silica pearls. We've got some silk there as well, and other sort of easy to get generic resources, sulfur, wood, thatch, etc. So that just about concludes the yellow drops, and now we'll head over to Frisky to do the green drops for us.
Alrighty, so we're on to the green drop, guys, and when we see the green drop, we are going to know that there's going to be crystal out in the space zone. I always thought, white drop and crystal would be very nice, as that seems a bit flavorful, but no, green drop means crystal. So we're going to jump in and have a look at our structures and our buildings and our saddles. So yet again, we see some more adobe. We come across to is an aloe saddle, which is nice. I don't think we've come across any of them yet. Our benches again, still nice to see some of them pop up. What else we have? We have our Diplocolor saddle, our Equus saddle. That's the first time to see some Equus saddles, and quite a few of them actually. And look, not a very prominent tame now to see people riding around on Equises, but still a tame that the occasional player might get. What else do we have? We have our Capro saddles. So first time seeing some of these, and we can see that we're getting some BPs. So noting that we can get pre-crafted saddles, we also know that we can get BP variants of these saddles too. A lot more resources and a lot more pipes again, so noting that we can grind these down, and I guess as well as use these resources if we want to. Look, we have our first taxidermy base, not that many people use them. Our loadout mannequin, which is quite handy, quite cheap to make, and basically does the exact same thing as what one of these vaults does. So very handy resource to have in your base. So if you have the opportunity to make one of them, I'd go ahead and make one of those loadout mannequins. Our first Ascendant Mosasaur platform saddle. That's quite nice to see, as well as an array of pre-crafted variants of it. Coming down a little bit further, we have Preserving Bin. Quite nice for an early game, unless you're, I guess, steamrolling to get into tech tier quite quickly and getting a proper fridge. We have a few more stone structures, stone pipes. Coming down a little bit more, and we've come into our tech bridge, our tech items, crop plot, even a tech generator. Tech generator is very nice to see, and quite a nice item to pick up if you can find one of these, as it's going to definitely help progress you into that tech tier. We have some truck saddles, 77 armor Ascendant truck saddles, quite handy and very nice to see for soaking purposes if that's what you're into, as well as a few shields, wooden shields for those early PvP bobs, and some Udi saddles to finish off our green drop. Alrighty, into our weapons and our armor. So by looking at it, we can see there's a common theme here, and that is we're going to be getting our cloth and our right, and plenty of it. So we can see that we're going to get some BPs as well as some pre-crafted like usual. Cloth items, yep, quite nice, but not the most useful item for those people playing PvP. So this riot gear, there's some nice Ascendant riot gear in here, like our riot boots, which are 405 durability, as well as our gauntlets here, which is 384. They seem to be the two standout ones. But yeah, look, our riot gear seems to be quite high durability, very nice. And then we have a few riot shields, so it's very nice for those PvP players who like to have a bit of a toss with some other people. So we have a Muscraft shield, as well as some Apprentice and Ramshackle and so on. So the common theme here out of our green drops is that we're going to be getting a lot of riot gear, which is not a bad thing. And lastly, our resources. Common theme so far, I guess, is what we're seeing is we get a lot of condensed gas, and lots of it by the looks of it. Starting from the top, very common theme, I guess, is we're getting a lot of basic resources. Look, a little bit of cementing paste is very handy, unless you can't find the beaver dams. I do have a video up personally about where to find some of those beaver dam locations, so go check that out if you haven't found them. I guess the beaver dams are in the Garden of Eden section around the waterways and the lakes. Coming in a little bit further, we've got a little bit of cooked lamb chops, although as we've mentioned before, it does spoil, so we do have a bit of spoil meat down the bottom here. Not as much element, but that's alright. A few element shards, a bit more obsidian, a bit of oil. Oil's very handy, unless you're going to wait for the red drop to come around, and you can go harvest the oil nodes over in the space zone. Not as much poly this time, but that's alright. We can make that up in other drops. And look, apart from that, just very common and I guess the same resources that are going to pop up in every other drop that we see. These just the generic early game resources, as well as the resources that we use throughout the game. Alrighty, I'll hand you back over to Axel to move on to the blue drop.
Alrighty guys, so thanks again Frisky. So now we move on to the proper blue drops, not the cyan, this is the dark blue drops. So what we're going to get here is that in the space biome you're going to get sulfur, or the big yellowy sort of alien-like rocks in the space segment when you see the blue drops in the world. So first up, looking at the structures and the saddles. Alright, so again, adobe structures, no need to really harp on about that any more than what we already have. Calicotherium saddles, which is not too bad. Gallimimus saddles, which for those of you who tame them, yeah, you can get them inside the dark blue. I can see an egg incubator. I'm guessing it's a relatively rare drop, but exceptionally handy. I'm so glad that they brought out what is essentially a hatchery from the SS/S Plus mod. Although limited to only 10 slots, it's still exceptionally handy for those who do a lot of breeding. Moving down the list, got a couple of itchy saddles. Again, not too bad. We've got an industrial cooker, an industrial forge, and 2 industrial grinders. So thus far, the dark blues seem to be where you can get the grinders, forges, and cookers from, which is good because they can be quite hard to make at times, especially if you're solo. Going down, we're getting more metal structures again. So as you make the metal structures, if you don't need them, just demolish them. You'll get all those resources back. Further down, we've got actually not a bad abundance and rarity of these rock drake saddles. So 4 rock drake saddles ranging from 61 armor to 76 armor, which, yeah, that's good in my book. Rock drakes can be quite handy, especially for traversal. Got a smithy, got some tech tier items here. So what we're seeing, we've got some tech dedicated storage, the tech double door frame, the tech force field, ramp, sensor, sleeping pod, and transmitter. So these items can be quite expensive, but thankfully, yep, dark blue drops, you're able to hopefully get some of these. Just do a bit of a farm for half an hour and yeah, you should achieve that, as well as some basic wooden structures and some things that I've never seen used in PvE or PvP, but That's alright, if you don't need them, just drop them. So now we'll move on over to the weapons and armor vault. Alright, so weapons and armor, straight off the bat. Cruise missile. Right, okay, so cruise missile is what you can get from the dark blue. The armor theme is definitely desert gear. So for those of you who happen to be in a hot area, then yeah, desert gear will serve you well. As we go down further below that, we have plenty of mining drills. So dark blue seems to be quite good for the mining drills. We've got 6 of them there, so roughly a 10% chance of getting one, including a BP, which only gives you 1 craft, but if you've got high-end crafting skill via a mine wipe, then hopefully you'll roll something decent. Below those, we've got some pump action shotguns. So this is actually what I've been personally waiting for. I don't know what drop they were going to come out of, but yep, they're inside the dark blue, so I'm happy about that. I've got some simple pistols, which are good for early game, because their ammo is relatively cheap. But below that, we've got the tech rifles. So for those of you who have seen a couple of the videos on YouTube, the Void Worm is best damaged via the tech rifle. So if you can manage to snag yourself a decent one of these, especially if you can get a blueprint and then up your crafting skill, I think you'll find that taming a Void Worm or getting it down to the health that it needs to be is quite nice. So yeah, dark blue drops for those. Now we'll move over to the resources section. Straight off the bat, I've got some cactus broth. There were some other edibles, like just a couple of med brews and whatnot, but due to the low spoil timer, they have sort of disappeared since then. But we do have some primitive charge batteries in here as well, some condensed gas, a little bit of cooked meat for us, very low amounts of element, but probably the highest amount of metal, raw metal that I've seen thus far, as well as metal ingots. So dark blue seems to be quite good for the raw metal and metal ingots. Some narcotics, plant species Z seed, more propellant and other generic, relatively easy to get resources, so I won't harp on too much about this. So now I'll hand you back over to Frisky and he's going to go through the purple drops.
Okay guys, so purple drops. Element shards is where we find lots and lots of them out in the space zone, and that's going to be one of those heavy PvP times if you're out there trying to farm up those element shards. So I'm going to dive straight into our first vault here. So we're going to maybe speed up a bit of this process down. So your common thing is you're going to get some adobe. Next thing, move on from that. Our chem benches, very nice. We have some donkey saddles. So it's nice to see that it's our first, our first donkey saddle to pop up. So yeah, a decent water team to go underneath into that ocean sort of biome, I guess underneath Gen 2. Moving down, we have some iguanodon saddles to appear. Very nice for those early game tames if you're after those to get those berries. Alimentria saddles, and lots of them. So I'm going to say that out of pretty much at least one drop you're going to get a Alimentria saddle, which is not the most common tame, but still a tame nonetheless. And some of the saddles up the top end, like these Mastercraft saddles, is still handy. Lots of these resources down a bit further, like our dinosaur gates and metal structures. So just like in the dark blue drop, is that we can get the grinder. So you can always grind these resources up to get back some of those base resources that you get from building those structures. Further down we have Morellotop saddles. Nothing too fancy here, sadly. Our Paris platform saddles, our Parasol platform saddles, as well as some blueprint saddles. So nice to see some of these appear, as well as a Mastercraft saddle. So I still know that some people use these Parasaurs for PvP purposes, so it's good to see that you're getting some decent saddles out of these drops. Generic sort of preserving bin. Nice to see a refrigerator pop up here. I don't think that's our first one that we've come across now. And look, our rock golem saddles. This is first time seeing rock golem saddles, so I'm going to say that from our purple drops is rock golem saddles. Getting some relatively okay drops for these saddles, but look, we've still got a few Mastercraft and Ascendant saddles to hopefully appear out of these drops. So considering we've done 50 drops and we've only got a Journeyman 45.8 rock column saddle, I'm going to say that hopefully we get some better quality later on. Moving down a bit further, got a few more structures. We have some snow owl saddles, so knowing that we can get snow owls on Gen 2, it's nice to see that we can get some decent saddles on here, and hopefully we can get some better ones later on, just with the Journeyman saddle, so knowing that we can get a Mastercraft and Ascendant later on. Apart from that, got a common occurrence of tech dedicated storage, very nice, another tech generator, very, very handy, as well as the transmitter, tech trough, and so on. So we'll jump straight on to the armor and weapons. So the common theme here is, I guess, our hide, and I guess lots of it. So we'll start at the top, and chainsaws, very, very handy and a very needed tool to have when doing some farming. So a decent Journeyman chainsaw up here. No blueprint sadly, but nonetheless it's a very useful tool to get. Fab sniper rifle. Look, it's a useful tool to have, useful weapon to have, but considering we've moved on to some of these new tech tier weapons, I reckon it's going to become obsolete in some forms, but I reckon still some people will utilise the Fab sniper rifle. Moving through, some hide armor, some hide blueprint armor. A lot of people skip this tier these days, unless you're sort of stuck in the hide early game stage. A few blueprints thrown in, but yeah, hide armor is going to be very, very common. We have a few lances thrown in, and a lance BP, a Mastercraft, which is quite nice to see. And we come into one of these items called a minigun, and it's nice to see that we're getting some blueprints as well as some pre-crafted minigun weapons. Very, very powerful weapon here, and it's going to be utilised a lot. It's quite nice to see that you're actually still getting quite a few. So out of 50 drops, we've got 5 here, so a nice percentage of occurrence for that to appear. Almost to the end of here, we have our tech bows, and these items are broken. They're extremely powerful, extremely useful, and is going to become maybe the new meta for a lot of PvP as well as taking on bases. They have been nerfed a little bit, but we're going to be doing a few videos testing out what these tech bows can do and what they can't do, and seeing the pros and cons about them. So it's nice to see that we're getting some high tier tech bows in the Mastercraft, as well as some blueprints thrown in as well. So nice array from Mastercraft all the way down to primitive. Last but not least is tech claws. So if you ever felt like being Wolverine, then look, go get yourself some tech claws. Some nice Ascendant tech claws out of 50 drops. We've got one here as well as a blueprint, and yeah, so ever felt like being Wolverine, then go for it. And last but not least, we've got our resources again, and without harping on too much, generic resources, a bit of chitin this time, although you can now get chitin from the update in those carnivorous plants as well as keratin. Not much element, a little bit more dust, plenty of fertilizer if you're into the stage of farming and using crop plots. It's nice to see a bit of fertilizer appear now, as it's the first time to see some of that, and plenty of other generic resources here that we've harped on about already. Apart from that, polymer, we've got 337 polymer here, and 373 polymer, and that's the most polymer that we've got from drops so far. So a definite resource that everyone's sort of needing, and it's good to see that we're getting a nice amount now. Okay, we'll throw on to Axel into the Cyan drop.
Alrighty, cheers Frisky. And now, last but not least, for the color range for these different drops, we've got Cyan, and this will denote element dust out in the space biome in clumps, where I'm pretty certain it's the Astrodelphus that actually sort of drops it on the ground. You've got to use proper element in order to feed it. So then we'll move on to structures and saddles. Alrighty, first thing that catches my eye actually, we've got an air conditioner and a primitive ammo box. It's the second ammo box we've come across, but it's nice to know that you can get it in these Cyan drops. More behemoth gates, chuck them in and break them down, just give them a demolish. Auto turret, so this is also the second colour to come across the auto turrets. Anki saddle, Daedon saddles, egg incubator. So again, egg incubator exceptionally handy. Got some gacha saddles, gas bags, including an ascender blueprint there. So for those of you who use gas bags for soaking, then go for the Cyan drops. I'm sure you might find something decent there. We've got a nice rate of gas bag saddles being dropped. Got some the giant metal trapdoors as well as the stone variant. So if you can grab a couple of those and break them down, that'll help you out a bit. We've got industrial grinder. So industrial grinder, second time we've seen that, I believe. So Cyan drops as well. Just anything you don't need out of these drops, don't get rid of them. Chuck them inside the grinder and grind them up. Industrial forge, also quite handy. Somehow we got a holoscope attachment in there that's supposed to be inside the weapons and armor vault. But that's alright, that's my mistake. Megalosaurus saddles, so for those of you who want to go over to AB at some point, it'll be good to come over here, get a couple of saddles or BPs and take them back over. Metal cliff platforms, so I'm glad that these showed up because you get 2 or 4 roughly per drop, and though they're exceptionally heavy, they're also quite rich with resources if you demolish them. Fiamir saddles, which I don't have to really explain that they're quite underused because Fiamir is not overly important unless you need lots of feces for fertilizer. Got the motorboat in there, which is nice. Preserving bin, small amounts of Triton saddles and a couple of Rex saddles in there. We've got the sloped tech roof as well as the sloped tech wall, so more tech structures, which is a nice thing. Got a primitive BP there for a Spino saddle, I'm guessing that's a rare occurrence. Going down a bit further, we've got more tech structures as well as the primitive tech hover sail. So I didn't think we were going to get a hover sail inside a drop, but appears to be that 1 out of 50 is about your chances in the Cyan drops, which is nice. Sleeping pod, railings, walls, window frames, windows, all the generic stuff. Wooden raft and more stone and wood structures that aren't overly useful. So that's one, yeah, that's out of the way. So now we'll move over into weapons and armor. Alright, so weapons and armor. We've got some electric prods, we've got some fabricated pistols, we've got some flamethrowers, including a blueprint. The armor theme is ghillie, so I think this is the second vault set that's had ghillie as its main, I guess, theme. We can't see any other armor. No, okay, so it's only ghillie armor that you're going to get out of Cyan, as well as some very decent long necks. So don't forget that the official cap for damage in weaponry is 298. So if you were to get any of these in blueprint form and then upscale your crafting skill to craft a couple of these up, then no doubt you'll get close to that cap, which is always nice. Next we'll move over into the resources vault, and this will be the last vault for the video. Alright, so first thing that stands out to me is the cactus broth. So cactus broth isn't overly seen in a lot of these drops. I think it's the second time we've seen it. We've got some beer, decent amount of absorbent substrate, blue gems, decent amount of cementing paste, lots of condensed gas, a few condensed balls, some cooked meat, lots of crystal, not a bad amount of element, a couple of shards, bit of raw metal, a few metal ingots, bit of obsidian, bit of oil, and other generic resources that are usually pretty easy to get throughout the map. And that just about concludes our showcase of 400 drops spread across the 8 color regions, so 50 drops per color, and then we of course segregated them out into the different vaults you see here. We'll both be putting the timestamps in the description so that way you guys will be able to see on the timeline which color is going where, and also be able to sort of just pinpoint which one you want to go to. Pause the video at any time if there's something in particular that you're wanting to see. and I do hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll leave this over to Panda to finish up the last of this outro.
Alrighty, thanks guys for watching, and hope you enjoyed it. This is, took a bit of time to set up, but look, out of 50 jobs for each color, we've got a nice view at what we can find and what is a very common theme to get from these drops. So hope that's helped, and if you've enjoyed the video and it's been helpful, then I guess don't forget to drop a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do the same for Axel over here too. We appreciate the support, and we thank you guys. So thanks for watching, guys.